into Talking Fitchburg, joined today from the Fitchburg Historical Society and a former mayor, and well, he's been a lot of things actually. It is Shawn Pfaff. Shawn, welcome into Talking Fitchburg, and more importantly, you're the guest and host for this month's Fitchburg Historical Society
Sure.
interview, and I'm glad that I get to step in, helping out Catherine. I was dealing with some family issues, and we wish her
Correct.
family the best. But Shawn, you and I, you were my second mayor when I being in Fitchburg, and got to know you. You actually were the start of us with Fact TV, kind of taking
Sure.
us and embracing what was going on. We had a mayor's report that you did with us, and you kind of helped us get on the map, so to speak. So it's a pleasure to actually have a conversation with you on air because we talk so much off air.
Sure.
But Shawn, welcome to the show, and how are you doing today?
I'm good, Jeremy. Thanks for reaching out to me. And again, all our best to Catherine and her family. But I'm honored to be part of this and honored to talk about, I guess, my role in Fitchburg's 40-year history as you continue to talk to mayors from the past about our 40-year anniversary this year. So thank you for reaching out.
Pretty impressive that it's 40 years, good or bad. It's a young city that came from a town, and as you came in at a unique time, I would say, and we can get into that a little bit. But as mayor, one of the things that I remember is the things that were growing. We were growing, and you were part of a lot of big projects during your term.
Yeah, thank you for noticing that. You and I did a lot of things back in the day, a lot of ribbon cuttings and worked closely with the Fitchburg Chamber. But Jeremy, that was a time where I had moved to Fitchburg. Now, it'll be 20 years ago this next year. I knew some folks and I was involved in the community and really got involved in building the library. So that was right at the time, just a little history. I got elected to the council in 2009 after serving on the Police and Fire Commission from 2007-09. On the council once, politics and campaigning is something that I understood and liked, but also realized that it was a very difficult job. My timing in life was the right time. I felt that my predecessor wasn't the right guy for the job. I ran, and I ran on the issue of two things. One, bringing Fitchburg together after a recession. How are we going to come out of that recession? And two, I just knew that there were some big things sitting there that needed to get done. Building our first ever library, significant neighborhood plans. And I think I had the skill set, and those folks that know me in town, I think maybe you would agree, kind of the personality to kind of work hard, put my head down, bring people along and say, as Winston Churchill kind of paraphrased, let's come together and move forward, as Churchill said during World War II. No, I'm not saying we went through World War II, of course, but it was one of those things where if we would come together, the potential of the city was just incredible. I kind of framed the debate when it came to development, which kind of shook some people's heads right away, but I think in the end it worked. The question wasn't if Fitchburg was going to grow, because we had those conversations for years. Development was tough. How are you going to do this? Is Fitchburg going to continue? We're right on the urban fringe of Madison. And there were a lot of neighborhood plans, a lot of, as you know, from old footage of Fact TV, neighborhood meetings, and boy, a lot of people there. And that certainly happened when I was mayor. But the conversation wasn't just if anymore. With Epic being built to our south and west, with the state capitol and the university to our north, what other community in the state was blessed to be between two of those public institutions in the fastest growing business? That's Fitchburg. So I said to the community, and I think I was proud of the people came along because the politics is about timing. It was recession. People want to get out of that. The question was no longer if Fitchburg was going to grow. It was how and when. And that really, in my opinion, changed the debate. It wasn't easy, but we did a lot of good things. We expanded Sub-Zero's footprint to now where they're based here. We saw Promega. I'll never forget my birthday in 2012. Promega came in on June 19th, and we passed $105 million expansion. As you know, you've covered Promega so much over the last decade. They continue to grow. And then we really went in on in Highway 14 uptown. Still got some work to do over there, but we really changed the way that Fitchburg in your entry point. For years, Madison was always a West Town and an East Town conversation, understandably so. We wanted people to think about Fitchburg as a place to be because we are so close. And so that was one of the big tenets was the economic growth. But the second piece that I'm very proud of, and probably the proudest of, and I know that we did a lot of events together in this, Jeremy, and you continue to do those. We really focused on Fitchburg as a community. I could never, as mayor, create my own school district in Fitchburg or our own school district. And that could always be a negative for us. And I get that. I don't personally have children, but I have a lot of friends who have dealt with that. As a Swan Creek resident at the time, I saw good neighbors move in because of the schools. So I knew that Fitchburg had this community, 5 different zip codes, 3 different school districts. Are you going to just allow the community to divide, Shawn? Or are you going to bring it together? And anybody knows me from my little town back home, they knew I was a community guy. And I said, let's bring it together. And again, politics is about timing. I was there when the library was first opened. That's why I always have a soft spot for the library and Wendy Rawson, because Wendy, who's a good liaison of the Fitchburg Historical Society, still there. She was hired as library director when there was a hole in the ground. We opened that library and you could just see the community sense. And we kept it rolling and we opened up the splash pad park on a hot day like we see this week. Kids from all over Dane County or all over South Central Wisconsin, no matter their walk of life, no matter their parents' income, can come to our library or also go to our splash pad park. But the last piece I was the proudest of was really embracing not only our geographic diversity, farmers, suburban, urban, not only our economic diversity of places like Sub-Zero, wonderful blue collar jobs, Omega, high tech, white collar jobs, people driving into Fitchburg to work, coming here to work. I was the most proud that we started a conversation about Fitchburg's incredible demographic diversity. The census came out in 2011, and we saw those numbers. Never forget, city manager Tony Roach and I looked at those numbers. Wow, Fitchburg was more than 33% African American Hispanic. That really opened the eyes up for me to say there's a lot of people. And as you know, part of our great history as Frances Huntley Cooper, our first African American elected mayor in the state, we've now named, rightfully so, the city council chambers after her. We have that great history. And I was proud to just, I know who I am and I know what I look like, but I was somebody who just said, let's focus on that. And that led to economic development along Fish Factory Road, reinvestment, those kind of things. So those are the things I'm proudest of.
I like that you say timing because timing is everything, and
Exactly.
you are right. You came in at a what I would say is a pivotal point in Fitchburg, and things got moving, and I think a part of that is your work at council. As well. I mean, you're not only the the person out there in the forefront, answering questions, sharing the information, which again, you're right. There was a lot of development, a lot of businesses open up, a lot of discussion, but that happens at council too, and it happens with
Sure.
working with staff behind the scenes. That's a lot of work that people don't actually hear about. They see the council meetings, so to speak, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes, Shawn, that goes with being the mayor and what you were doing.
I would just add, Jeremy, and this is the side of folks I think that people appreciate it from me, but also were taken aback a little bit, is maybe at times they viewed me as being political, and I'm not going to deny that. You and I have had these conversations off the record, if you will. But I had a council, elections matter. You've got to win races. And we had a council that was in agreement with where I wanted to go. And we got a lot of things done. Many of the neighborhood plans we do now, I do some real estate, as some of you may know out there in the city, enjoy doing that. The development and the houses that are being sold now is this housing crunch that we are going through. A lot of those developments were done in dark nights, cold, during the end of the recession. People like Carol Poole, Richard Bloomquist on the council, Becky Baumbach. And we passed these developments hoping that the city would be ready to pop loose and grow. And many of the listings that are available now, Jeremy, are stuff that we did back in the day. And if we would have kind of sat there or maybe had a council that was divided like Fitchburg had been in the past, it was about timing and it was about politics. You were right. And I think we positioned ourselves well. I always like to say I'm a Gen Xer. In our generation, I'm going to whine a little bit here, isn't always the most appreciated in my life. You got baby boomers, you got millennials. Jeremy, you're probably a old millennial or a young Gen Xer, but I'm speculating. I'm dead in the center of the Gen X generation. And my generation, I viewed my time and I see who's in charge of the city now, somebody I greatly support, our current mayor. I'm very proud of her. My time was to kind of take the old, bring it to the new, but be the guy in the middle. Maybe it's because I'm a middle child, and move us in a direction where Fitchburg was positioned to embrace its diversity, understand how it was going to grow, realize that maybe we're never going to get the Fitchburg High School that we all want, or many of us wanted, but also to not be afraid to come together as a community. Other thing I want to briefly mention, and this was kind of, you wouldn't be surprised, I think you saw this. You and your team do a great job of covering the concerts in the park. And just a wonderful concert this past Monday night. And I'm proud to be part of the Lions Club. That Concerts on the Park was a great story. As you may know, that was the senior center just had these small little concerts for their residents, and they'd go to the park and enjoy a nice day and have a polka band or other local music, which was great. Well, Jill McCone, to her credit, came to me, the senior director, and she said, "We got to do more with this. My staff can't do this, Shawn. We're growing. We got other things to do. We don't want to give this up." I reached out to Angela Kinderman at the chamber, and gal Kate Miller, who was there, who now runs the Middleton Chamber. We put this together, and now it is just phenomenal. I mean, your team, Scott, was covering it the other night. There's 400 or 500 people there. Food carts. Me and as a Lions Club member, I'm serving beer. My right arm was hurting because I was pouring beer so much the other night. Those are things that I'm proud of. Maybe that sounds a little bit too much about me, but we brought this community together. We gave Fitchburg, and then as you see on the equipment that you have, Fact TV was a big part of that. But then we did this branding exercise. Fitchburg got a new logo, and Fitchburg did it all across the board, whether you're in the senior center, whether you're in the public works department, whether you're within the fire department, you have the same brand. People know placemaking. You know when you're in Fitchburg. We used to hear this conversation. What is Fitchburg? What? That's all part of this 40-year journey that we've been part of. And I was glad I had my total, when you count my police and fire commission, city council, 8 years to really put an impact. In my opinion, hopefully it was beneficial to the city.
I do remember since we were filming a lot of different things at the time, I remember you mentioning the diversity piece, and I always thought that was pretty awesome to remind people of just how diverse the community was, because I don't
Right?
think people had a clue going into that, especially after the census had
Proportionally
come
more than
out after
Madison.
11. All of that stuff, it makes it pretty special, Shawn.
I think, Jeremy, what I would say too is I agree with you, and I think looking back, we did the right things. Now, of course, as someone who still cares about his community and is involved in it, I think there's a couple challenges for us in Fitchburg, though, the next few years, especially cost of housing. How do we make sure people can live here and raise a family, or if they choose not to, enjoy all the amenities we have? And that is a real challenge. I know city leaders are worried, focusing on that. I think our other challenges are, how do we continue to be part of this community identity? How do we continue to have Fitchburg continue to try to grow as a community in Fitchburg as we get more restaurants and more amenities like the concerts in the park, the Need for Speed race that just happened, the farmers market. Those are the continued things that we need to do to bring that forward. So that's, I guess, if anybody was asking for a little advice, that's what I would share with them, is that piece.
Well, you did mention that you are still involved in the community, in kind of our last piece here as we wrap up, Shawn. You're still serving a couple of different roles.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're doing with the city.
Well, I still love Fitchburg. I had a chance to move to the Madison area um, twice in my life. Once I was a school teacher out in Mount Horeb, before I had a chance to work in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. I came back for graduate school in the early 2000s. And then after that, I worked for Governor Doyle. So I got the experience at the state level. And then I got married. And my first wife and I had to pick a place to live. We chose Fitchburg. And I'm proud to say that unfortunately, I went through split up with my first wife, remarried a wonderful gal, and very happy. But Monica and I now live in Fitchburg, and we live in Seminole Forest. Still believe in the community. I do, as I mentioned, sell some real estate in the community. Know a lot of folks. Kind of people come to me if they know Fitchburg. I kind of also wanted to give back to my community. Very proud of the fact that I've been in the Lions Club since 2007, and then just took over as our president this summer. Our longtime president, who's wonderful, asked me to take it over. But also previous mayors, Mayor Gonzalez and now Mayor Arata and Mayor Richardson as well, have asked me to serve on committees. And I enjoy that because I don't have to go there every Tuesday night and sit for 3.5 hours and talk about things, but I also sense that I can give back. So I chair the city's joint review board for tax incremental financing. Sounds like a lot. It's the committee when the city wants to do development. It does what they call their TID districts, and the taxing jurisdictions of the school districts, the city, the tech colleges, and our city and the local schools. I chair that committee as a citizen representative appointed by Mayor Arata. Gonzalez had appointed me as well. And also something I greatly enjoy, which I think is a committee that is fascinating to watch. Not always the most entertaining, but it's very dry, but it's also very intense, is the Board of Review. As citizens have the right to come to the city, object to their assessments, whether they're commercial or they are residential. And with us gaining the town of Madison now, with us seeing incredible growth in our home values, Jeremy, when I was mayor, the average home value was $260,000. Now in Fitchburg, it's close to $440,000 10 years later. So to sit on that joint review board and serve as vice chair is something I'm very proud, and I'm glad that Mayor Richardson asked me to do that. I'm proud that I stayed in Fitchburg. I like this community. I love this community. It's not my home. My home are the hills of Western Wisconsin, but it's where I live now, and it's something that I want to give back. And it's also nice to be a former mayor and to know what's going on in the city, but also to not butt my nose into everything. And if people want to ask for advice, I'm willing to share it, of course. But I do think that this is a community. And one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved in the Fitchburg Historical Society, why we're doing this interview, is I was proud that Adrian Imolkowski reached out to me, and my friend Mike Croft, Catherine Schneider, someone you know well, asked me to serve on this. And one of the perspectives I wanted to bring to that committee, Jeremy, is I wanted to bring the 40 years journey of Fitchburg. We have great history, and we studied every day of the Irish families. We see it on our roads, the Lacey's, the Kinneys, the Alts. Incredible. The Bryan brothers are good friends of mine. Very important part of our history, needs to be studied every day, and thank those families for their investment and dedication and love of Fitchburg and for coming here. But I think we have such great recent history. And the 40 years, we see the story of Frances Huntley Cooper. I know you've talked to her recently. Mayor Gonzalez, Mayor Arata, elected Hispanic leaders. I wanted to tell the story of the last 15, 20 years of Fitchburg and how our neighborhoods have grown and how our community has changed, but for the best, I believe. And that's one of the things I think the Historical Society will continue to focus on. It'll do the deep dive into the history of the past, and it should continue to do that. But one of our members is a former city planner for Fitchburg, and he is working on a project to talk about how the neighborhoods were developed. And when Burnwood went in, and when one of my Swan Creek went in 20 years ago, where I first lived, Seminole Forest, the house I live now in Seminole Forest, is on the state historical, or potentially could be on the state historical society list for that neighborhood. All these stories have happened within the last 40 years. So I'll wrap up by saying I was proud to be part of the presentation that you covered and the Mayor Arata had, where she gave us former mayors these great hats to talk about the 40 years of Fitchburg. And if you look at the funky script here, it's from the 80s. I remember that as a kid because I was a kid in the early 80s. And to be part of this 40-year history and to be one of the elected leaders for the city, something I'm forever grateful for. And I think it's only fair to me, since the residents of the city were generous enough and had the confidence in me to elect me 3 times, once the council, twice as mayor, that it's only right that I give back to the community. So thank you for listening, and thank you for all you do with Fitchburg. I know Fact TV continues to get tons of awards, rightfully so. And you are capturing this history. And thank you for doing that, to you and your team.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Sean, and we're definitely a partner up with the Historical Society as well to make sure that we do pass on that footage of the stuff that has been captured throughout the years. Certainly my tenure, but even further back than that. So we'll keep sharing the stories.
Thank you.
Sean, thank you so much for all your great work, and look forward to having you back on the show sometime real soon.
Thank you, Jeremy. Be well.
You as well.